This podcast is part of the Michigan Sports and Entertainment Podcast Network. Go to michigansportsandentertainment.com for more great podcasts.
Hey everyone, this is Austin.
What's going on, guys? This is John.
And you're listening to the Voice of the Fan Sports Podcast. All right, John, we're back. Michigan State, a lot happening in the Spartan realm. But before we get into that, how have you been, man? It's been a while.
Good, man. New job. Part of the reason we haven't been recording. So getting used to that, I was kind of on like a mini vacay last week to get ready for that. And here we are. But ready to get back into things, man. How are you doing?
Not too bad. Launched another podcast and
Deep dive.
Just been doing that. It's been fun. A lot of work, but fun and worth it. So outside of that, man, just trying to just living the dream, living the podcast dream, which I don't really know what that is, but I think I'm living it.
Well, maybe we'll find out one day.
Exactly. Who knows? I don't know. But I don't even know what it's going to be like if I, what is the podcast dream? I don't even know. So I don't even know if I have it.
Maybe we'll break the new hire before anybody else for Michigan State, and then Dweeb Dive gets like 1 million followers, and like we get really, really rolling in it. Maybe that we'll figure it out.
That seems pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take it. Speaking of, Dantonio retired. Which we'll talk about.
Yeah, dude,
obviously.
Huge, massive news.
It's funny because as Austin DM'd me yesterday after we were talking about it, he was just like, it's like almost a case of be careful what you wish for, because I wanted him gone a while ago, and here he is, February 4th, officially retiring and really setting us up for an interesting offseason of football. We'll talk about that first. I'm going to touch on basketball, teams in their yearly panic button mode that Austin always says to. We'll talk about that real quick and then touch on something nationally regarding college football, kind of. Nothing big or anything, just something I wanted to talk about, but we haven't been able to record. So, Austin, Michigan State's been losing quite a bit in basketball. Lost to Illinois. Or no, I'm not Illinois. I'm sorry. Also, Wisconsin and Penn State, Indiana, Penn State, and Wisconsin. The Wisconsin one was embarrassing.
Well, I mean, it could be worse. It could be Purdue. Purdue loses to
but
everybody.
Well, Purdue's had a rough year in both sports, but the thing that bothers me most about the Wisconsin game was that Wisconsin loses Kobe King and like a random like step down from the program, and then Brad Davidson finally gets suspended for something. I'm gonna put that in there. Have you noticed how dirty this kid is?
It's the same kid that was doing stuff last year, right?
He's been doing it. Yeah, he was flopping when he first came into college, and last year he like tripped somebody and like went through a screen. Pretty much did the same thing he did versus whoever got him suspended, and he like punched somebody in the dick, for lack of a better word. So wow. He's always looking for a cheap shot, and I feel like Wisconsin always kind of has that like gritty. They had somebody before him. I can't remember his name, but almost like a Aaron Kraft type guy at Ohio State that just annoys the hell out of you. But they go into Wisconsin and go down 43-25 at halftime, and you come back, but it's the same story. It's too little, too late. Same thing happened to Purdue. Same thing happened in the Indiana game. You go down big in the first half, and you got to crawl out of this hole. This team has not been prepared on the road. And I don't know who else to look at other than Izzo. And I'm not like I did for Dantonio. I'm not calling for Izzo's head. I don't want Izzo to go anywhere. I love Izzo, but I think this team, Austin, is. I don't want to. I'm going to have to use this word because I don't know what else to use. I think they're mentally soft in some ways to where I think Izzo might want to think about kind of changing how he coaches these kids in games. Because when you watch the games and you see them struggle and you see him get on them, which is what he normally does with all of his teams, and it works, they almost look like they're like an animal who just like was abandoned, and like you're trying to get used to their new owners or whatever. Like they're like scared, and it's weird watching. And last night, losing to Penn State at home was just another one of those things to think about, because you have a guy like Cassius Winston who gets an and one with 11 seconds left down 3 and goes to the free throw line, misses it, and he looked like in his face his whole world was about to explode. It just seems like his team is playing. They're not playing basketball for like they're supposed to. I feel like they are trying way too hard to do something, which they got to get back to just playing the game that they love and stop not trying so hard. But you know what I mean? They're like almost putting too much pressure on themselves, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just as the devil's advocate to road losses. I mean, everybody in the Big Ten has been losing on the road. So I think it's impressive that Penn State won against Michigan State on the road, but it's just so hard for me to look at a Big Ten team right now and say and have concerns when they lose on the road, because it would be one thing if it was just Michigan State, but it's literally everybody, and it's been happening. I mean, not just in the Big Ten, but every top-ranked team out there, it's been happening to them too. So I don't know, I guess just as a devil's advocate, like I said, to what you were talking about with the road losses, it's literally everybody's been doing it, and they've been losing to the worst teams. I mean, I can't say about the loss at home to Penn State, but Penn State is also a top 25 team. They're very good. So it's not like a normal Penn State loss where they're on the cusp of being okay. They're actually a really good team. The Big Ten is very deep in basketball teams this year. So I'm just not sold on Michigan State basketball being in any kind of panic mode. I think they're still in a pretty good spot. Will they win the Big Ten? I don't know. But again, come March, I just think everything will kind of figure itself out, and you guys will be fine and continue to be you guys are who I always think you are. So I'm sticking to my guns on that.
Yeah, and I'm not losing faith yet, because like you said, I mean, they typically come out, smelling like roses most of the time, but it is worrisome. I mean, you got a guy, it's like I said earlier, the last episode we recorded, which Jesus was Christmas, but they really miss guys like Kenny Goins and Matt McQuaid, who are not the best basketball players, but they were almost a calming leadership presence to where they've been there before. You have a lot of guys out there, being in the situation for the first time, and Rocket Watts and Aaron Henry's putting a lot of pressure on himself to be that third guy. Tillman had a really weird game against Wisconsin where he missed like 3 layups in a row, like when they were down by 1 and they lost by 1. So it's just, I think it's still guys trying to find their role, and I think this team has the talent to make a run, but you can't lose to and I understand the road games in the Big Ten have been wild, but if you want to be an outright Big Ten champion, a Final Four national title contender, you don't lose games to a Wisconsin team who's depleted and their programs seem to be falling apart, and then you pretty much get their season back on a somewhat hopeful level. You lose to an Indiana team, given always tough to play at Assembly Hall, but you just looked flat. And then you go and you lose at home to Penn State. And then you look right back at the Purdue game, Austin, and you guys played one of the best games I've seen you guys play in a while, but at the same time, Michigan State got flat. You guys punched us in the mouth, and we didn't know how to take it. So I don't want to question this team's toughness, because I think they are tough, but I think there's something mentally going on with this team. And obviously, given Cassius, I'm sure he will always be going through a lot in his life after losing his brother. So there's just a fog over this team, I feel like. And big game Saturday against a struggling Michigan team at Michigan that it's a must win now if you want to even have a shot at sharing the Big Ten title even. But looking at the Big Ten standings, dude, holy shit. Illinois, Maryland at the top at 8-3. Is that who? If I would have asked you, hey Austin, it's going to be February 5th, 2020, who's top of the Big Ten? Would you have said Illinois?
Probably not. No, they've always been.
Yeah, it feels like they've always been close to getting back to where they were when they had guys like Darren Williams and stuff. But like, they just never reached there. But I feel like Brad Underwood has them going.
Yeah, I feel like they've always been on the cusp, and then they just fall apart. But I guess they finally put it all together. And historically, Illinois has been pretty decent at basketball. For sure. And they just kind of fell off, but maybe they're back now. I don't know. Maryland, I mean, is not a surprise. They were one of the top teams anyway, so that's not too surprising. But yeah, Illinois, man, that's crazy.
Yeah, and then you got teams that are normally in the hunt for the title: Purdue, Indiana. Well, Indiana's been struggling the last few years, but historically, and then Michigan. I mean, all at 5-6, 5-6, and 4-7. So weird year. Rutgers is still 16-7. Penn State's been really impressive. They're 17-5 overall, 7-4 in the conference. Big win last night, as we discussed. So they're on a 5-game winning streak. Other than that, I mean, the Big Ten. I mean, there's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-ish teams that could somehow still win the Big Ten. So,
Big Ten basketball's back, man. That's what the Big Ten has always been.
Yeah, I don't know if Michigan. I don't know if the Big Ten has a great team in it, but I also don't know if there's a great team in college basketball. So it's just going to be interesting to watch how everything kind of unfolds and just kind of stay on the roller coaster of a season that has been for Michigan State. And Purdue's got a big game right now, but
we're trash. So
not at home. You guys are 9-2. You guys don't lose at Mackey in the Big Ten at least. We're not great. I'm just trying to be hopeful, buddy. All right.
I appreciate that, but
anyways,
as an aside, to your comment about Big Ten basketball, it's, is there a good team in the Big Ten? I don't know, but we're also just beating the absolute stuffing out of each other over and over in every single game. So it looks like there's not really a good team in the Big Ten, but boy, when we get into March and the Big Ten starts playing each other, what's going to happen? Maybe we'll see the Big Ten kind of dominate like they used to in March, where they put 8+ teams in the tournament and then they just beat on everybody. As long as the refs allow the physical style that the Big Ten plays like. So should be fun, curious to see.
I just, like I said, I don't think there's plenty of good teams in the Big Ten. I just don't think there's a great team, but I also don't think, like I said, there's a great team in the country right now. But like you said, Big Ten grinded out type basketball, really physical. You don't really want to see a Big Ten team come tournament time because of their physicality. So it's going to be interesting to see. We will be back to recording more now that everything's kind of settling down for me. Austin is pretty in timeout because they've been bad. They've been bad boys. So he's going to kind of go on a mini hiatus with Purdue until football gets going, because let's be honest, football is king.
It is.
So speaking of football, Austin, a little news yesterday.
Just a little bit.
It's kind of funny because I was at work when the news broke, and I was pulling a car in, and I hear on the radio they're talking about the rumors about Dantonio retiring, and literally 20 minutes later, I get a text from you saying Dantonio is retiring, and I'm like, he probably just heard the rumors. And then you send me the link, and I'm like, oh, well, I guess all right. So, I mean, I'm still in disbelief and shock about this. Obviously, I think it's the right thing for the program in the long run. This year, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, but I guess just your first initial thoughts when it happened, Austin.
I mean, I don't know what to make of it. I know the offense hasn't been great. There's been heat on some other fronts, but I just thought Michigan State, he's a defensive coach, and Michigan State's defenses have been good while he's been there in the bad seasons and the good. It's always been the offense, and it was just a matter of, is he going to figure out the offensive staff? And, obviously he didn't, which stinks, but you just never know. All it took was a spark or the right hire, and they'd be back on track. And, I just don't know. Maybe it was time. The recruiting's been down. Yeah. Obviously, the team has underperformed in the past 3 years that they've been ranked and had high hopes, especially the past 2 years having an arguably one of the best defenses in the country, and you kind of squander that. Your offense continually took backward steps. So maybe I don't know. I think as a coach, as a recruiter, he's kind of obviously, John, to your point, he's built Michigan State football up. And to see him leave the way he did, I think it's tough. Where Michigan State goes from here, I know we're going to talk about it, but I think it's a pretty big blow. But also the flip side to that, if you're a glass half full kind of person like me, is the opportunity that just opened up with the work that Dantonio did do at Michigan State, building it up as a top tier program in the Big Ten. While it's fallen off a little bit, it still has that reputation. It still has that fan base. It still has every big piece that you want. It plays with the big boys in the East, the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Penn States. So this is a very attractive job for a prospective coach.
I agree.
That wants to, essentially bring Michigan State back.
And before I get into how attractive the job is and my thoughts and everything, I got just one question for you and how you would like to see them handle things if they can't get a guy like Fickell, or how do you pronounce the 49ers defensive coordinator's last name?
I think it's Salah,
or a guy like Pat Shermer's a name that's being thrown around, et cetera, et cetera. Do you think they should give Tressel a chance for a year instead of hiring somebody in a panic and then see if he doesn't work out, get an actual real chance at the coaching carousel next season? Or do you think they got to hire somebody now? Like, they got to try to find their guy, even if it's not their top guys?
Well, I think if you can get your guy like Luke Fickell or Robert Salah, I would do it because
if you can get those guys for sure.
But outside of that, if you can't get your guy, then I wouldn't rush something. I would very much just stick to your guns and ride and roll with what you have a little bit and just see if anything changes. And then you can make a decision either in season or at the end of the season. You don't want to make whole fire changes, fire sale everybody, which can happen sometimes, but you just never know. I think if you can't get your guy, stick to your guns. I think Jim Tressel brings enough to the table that you can ride it out. It's not like he's a bad coach.
Right.
So, just ride it out if you can't get your guy. But if you can get your guy, get him. Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, for me, I guess my initial thoughts on the whole thing was weird timing. 100% was what stuck in my head. I know a lot of people want to bring up the scandal side of it. I don't want to get into the whole Curtis Blackwell thing because nothing has ever been confirmed, and I don't want to pretty much talk about gossip is what it is right now in regards to recruiting violations, etc. I think that did put pressure on Dantonio, but honestly, the more really watching the press conference last night, and when you seen Dantonio on the sideline last year, he just did not have the look in his face to where he was enjoying it and wanting to coach these kids up. And he was on a recruiting trip last week, and he's never really seemed to enjoy the whole recruiting grind and playing the games of recruiting and stuff like that. And I think he was just sick of it. I think he's done. I just don't think he wants to coach anymore. And I think the reason he waited so long is because he's so stubborn, and he wants to, what he always says is finish the job. But he did kind of say in the press conference too that this season was most likely going to be his last anyways. So I guess you give the program a head start to find their guy. Do I wish he would have done it sooner? Yes, but not because of what most people are freaking out about it, which is his bonus. Like, regardless of the timing of it and everything, I think me and you for sure can agree, Austin, that Mark Dantonio earned his $4.5 million bonus over his time at Michigan State University.
Yes.
So, yeah, he's built a program from the ground, and regardless if we like the scenario or not, I mean, yeah, it was kind of a interesting move from him. And until I know if we ever even find out the true intentions of it, I mean, I'm not going to rip the man's character like some local radio stations have been doing and stuff like that. I just don't think it's right, especially for everything he's done for the program. And I don't want to sound like a Dantonio apologist, because I wanted him gone, and this is what I wanted. But to just kind of forget about everything he did for the program, and I don't agree with the timing of everything, but I mean, Jesus, I mean, he deserves a statue, and I hope people still respect him for that and everything he's done for the program.
Yeah, I agree.
It was tough for me watching that press conference yesterday, man. Like, just seeing a guy who never really showed too much emotion almost break down eventually in a press conference. I mean, it hits you. It's like, man, I don't think we realize how human these coaches actually are, because you always see them on the field, they're so serious, and not all of them show emotion like a Tom Izzo. So it was really interesting and moving to see him in a more vulnerable position in regards to emotions and stuff like that. So obviously shout out to Mark Dantonio. I know he listens to the show every time I drop an episode. A little sarcasm there. But hey, he's gonna have a lot of time now with retirement, so maybe I should like, hey bro, just check us out. Think he'd pay attention to it, Austin?
I mean, you might as well shoot your shot, right?
Yeah.
You never know.
And in regards to the whole thing of scandals, I also want to touch on, if there was really some sanctions coming, Dantonio did something horribly wrong, would we really keep him around the program as like an advisor for athletics? Like, you would think we would like just part ways with him completely, right? I mean, you're not going to keep a guy around who's going to get in trouble for sanctions. So I don't know. I could be wrong. He might have committed all these violations, and I will be the first one to admit I'm wrong if it does come out and there's solid proof, but I just don't see him doing something like that. And let's be honest, if he did hire a parent into the program, I think me and you could both probably, on the both of our hands, with as many fingers as we have, name 10 programs that do the same thing. So I don't know why people are making such a big deal out of it, but here we are. In regards to the coaches that we might be signing or bringing on with us, obviously I think the pipe dream, for me at least, Austin, even though I think Salah would be a phenomenal hire, I think it's almost eerie and creepy how similar this coaching search is when we got Dantonio. And not only that, other than the fact that Dantonio obviously built a program from the ground, John L. Smith was just horrible, but the program was in disarray when we hired Dantonio, et cetera, et cetera. Do you remember where Dantonio coached before he came to Michigan State?
No, I do not.
Cincinnati.
I had no idea. Oh, hey, look at that.
He led Cincinnati to a couple 10-win seasons. Former Ohio State staffer. he's not as young as Luke Fickell, but that's an added bonus for Michigan State. He's about 20 years younger than I think like 15 years younger than Dantonio was when Dantonio came to Michigan State. So, I think Fickell's the obvious choice for me, choice A. He recruits well for a program like Cincinnati. He recruits Michigan pretty well. He beat Michigan State out on a few recruitments. Obviously, it's an interesting scenario to put another coach in, especially at the college level, because they also have recruiting classes that they have signed and are telling their kids they're going to be there. So it's going to be a weird situation for any college coach. That's why I kind of look to a guy like Salah as in if he wants a college head coaching job. I mean, hey, here's your alma mater. You coach there. Another defensive mind, just like Fickell, just like Dantonio. People want an offensive-minded head coach, but I don't mind bringing a defensive guy in again as long as he makes the right move with the offensive staff. And that was my big issue with Dantonio, is being too loyal to his friends and not wanting to give Salem the complete reins to the offense. So for me, if we can't get Fickell or Salah, or I guess Shermer, I would be okay with. I don't know if I want anyone else, to be honest, to just kind of hire somebody. Jim McElwain was brought up at Central, who he coached Florida, I think, for a couple seasons and got fired. I'm not big on that. I don't want to bring Narduzzi back. He also just signed an extension with Pitt, so unless we want to, I think his buyout's like $10 million. So, I think Fickell is the guy that they're going to target the most and go after the hardest. But it'll remain to be seen if he stays at Cincinnati. A couple of interesting things on Fickell is Cincinnati did not extend him. So, I'm pretty sure his last year of his contract is this year with Cincinnati. So that'll be interesting. He has not publicly declined the job. He did say in an interview that no one's reached out to him yet. But when asked if what he's telling recruits and his coach or his players is the same thing, that no one's reached out to him yet. He has not straight up said, I'm not going anywhere yet. So, as Alan True said on one of the Michigan State message boards to a question about Fickell, is that he hasn't heard anything official on Fickell, but if he doesn't turn down the job publicly in the next couple of days, you would think that's at least a tell that there's something going on between Fickell and Michigan State, at least communication-wise. So I think he's the obvious guy to keep an eye on. I mean, we're still so early in the process, 24 hours into it, but you got to move quick. I mean, it's February 5th. Signing day was today. So, I mean, there's going to be essentially no recruiting done by the new coach, whoever it is. So, it's an interesting situation. I mean, putting a staff together this late. I mean, unless Fickell takes his whole staff with him from Cincinnati, which, Jesus, can you imagine being a Cincinnati fan? Your program's on the up and up, your coach leaves, takes the whole staff with him, and you're just, what are you doing? Now you got to late
back to where you kind of started, I guess.
Yep. So, I mean, that's the business of college football. It's a business of football, but it's going to be an interesting ride. I really just hope they don't panic and just hire a guy instead of giving Tressel a chance. I'm not a Tressel guy. Another name I'd be okay with is Harlan Barnett, who left Michigan State because we wouldn't give him because him and Tressel were co-defensive coordinators. We wouldn't give him the sole title of defensive coordinator, so he went to Florida State to do so. Obviously, things did not turn out well in Florida State, but Barnett was a phenomenal defensive back coach for us and our best recruiter. So, and it was obvious when he left that recruiting fell off. So that's a guy I'd be okay giving a shot as well, but nothing long term. I think Michigan State has to do this right, and if Barnett or Tressel don't work out, if they're your interim guys, then next year you go full force. You drop the bags of cash on whoever you need to on their porch, on their doorstep, and hope they'll take it. because I truly believe, in all bias aside, that Michigan State, I think it's safe to say, is a top 30 job, I would think, in the country right now, before the program completely falls apart. So I think there's something to be said there, and I think Fickell is the perfect guy for Michigan State, Austin. Personality-wise, he has that Dantonio attitude almost, like the toughness about him. You know what I mean? He almost like not looks like physically, but the whole makeup of his resume, it's got the whole Dantonio MSU all over it. So, and again, there's nothing, I don't have issues with how Dantonio ran the program. I thought he was a phenomenal head coach. The issues that lay with him is his loyalty to his staff and not stepping away from the offense. If Fickell is a defensive coach, comes in, you got to bring in an OC that's a legit one. And you got to let him completely change the offense. I mean, just rip it from, and it's a perfect time to do so because you lose Brian Workey, you lose Cody White, your number one receiver, you lose Darryl Stewart, your number one-ish, number two receiver. You got a bunch of young guys, young O-line, young running backs, young quarterback, because let's face it, you're not getting a transfer quarterback now. I mean, Dantonio's gone. Chase Bryce committed to Duke. KJ Costello, I believe, is going to Mississippi State. And I haven't heard anything on Peyton Ramsey. So your quarterback is going to be... Oh, you know what else, Austin, is a positive of the Dantonio retirement now that I just think about it? You know who's probably not going to be the quarterback now?
Rocky Lombardi?
Yep, because that would be such an Dantonio move to just throw Rocky Lombardi in there. So, crossing my fingers, and that, I mean, if he is the best guy, then play him, obviously. But crossing my fingers, we see some Peyton Thorne. I'm hopping all aboard the Peyton Thorne train ever since you gave your scouting report on him, and I've just been reading great things about him. So, but you got to get a coach in ASAP, get to know the guys, change up the scheme, get his staff in here, hopefully get a guy like Jordan Simmons to sign. But two other guys who committed to Michigan State after the first signing period did sign today. Multiple current recruits have publicly tweeted that they're staying within the program, plan on trying to leave. I mean, obviously they're signed right now, but I'm pretty sure if they wanted to leave, NCAA would probably grant release from their letter of intent because of this. But NCAA does some interesting things, but that's a conversation for another day. So it's going to be interesting. If I had to guess who the head coach is going to be, I think it is a little early. And I think me saying this is me being a little optimistic. But man, and it might just because I want it so bad, but I really think the Fickell thing might happen, Austin.
And it looks like the stars are aligning, and it would be a really, really good hire. So who knows, man? We'll wait to be seen, but
I would hope
it looks good.
I would hope we'd have a coach within 2 weeks. I don't know if that's unrealistic, but at this time of the year, I kind of want somebody in. As long as he's the right guy, like I said. I mean, obviously Mike Tressel's taking over the head coach duties right now, but we got to get somebody in here. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, we'll keep you updated as time goes. What a wild turn of events yesterday for the Michigan State football program. An end of an era, to be honest. It's weird feeling. I mean, he was there for 13 years. I was 11 years old when he got brought on as a coach. So pretty much my entire Michigan State fanhood, to be honest. So, which I've been blessed with a lot of good years of football, Big Ten championships, a lot of big games. And the funny thing to me is, real quick, just because everything Michigan State and Michigan is always about each other. I'll be the first to admit it. We hate them, they hate us. But a lot of Michigan fans commenting, saying Dantonio could only beat Hoke and Rich Rod because they had bad teams and blah, blah, blah. But it's funny to me because no one ever brings up on the Michigan side of things of all the top 5 teams that Dantonio's beaten. The Ohio State team he beat in 13, or not in 13. The Ohio State team he beat in 2013. The great meme of Urban Meyer eating the Cole Papa John's pizza after the game to go to the Rose Bowl. Getting Michigan State out of all schools, and he never recruited an elite class. He got Michigan State to the college football playoff. The only other Big Ten team to do so is the powerhouse in Ohio State. To try to discredit this man because he lost to Jim Harbaugh a couple times while having his worst teams, his worst seasons, is just asinine to me. But you know how the rivalry is. I think they're going to have their own issues with Harbaugh still down the line, but that's just my opinion. But regardless, Dantonio statue should be built for him. Sad to see him go, but I'm excited for the future. This is the change I think this program needed if they want to save the program. I mean, it's a sinking ship right now. It's just about if they can patch the boat up and keep it afloat. If you can get a guy like Fickell, you probably go still like 7-5 this year, but a couple years, get his recruiting class in. Maybe get a couple like Purdue-esque recruiting classes, because I know you guys struggled this year, but man, have you been recruiting well with God, I can't even remember your coach's name now because we don't talk about Purdue anymore.
Jeff Brom.
Yeah, Brom. I almost did Jeff Blashill, the Red Wings head coach. That's another guy who needs to go. But no 9-game losing streak. But so it's just so we're never going to have a top 15, top 10 class probably. The only guy to do that at Michigan State was Nick Saban. And who's Nick Saban again?
I think he's a big deal in Alabama, but that's it.
Oh, okay, yeah, something like that. So, but it's just an interesting time for the program, how they move. I'm a little nervous because Bill Beekman's our athletic director, and I think he's just kind of like a yes man for the university right now. So we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if they completely botch this, but I am surprisingly going into this with optimism for once in my life, Austin. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to put all my chips in for Fickell. Would not be disappointed to hear Salah or Shermer. Honestly, I don't really... Toledo's head coach was brought up. I don't really know much about him, so we'll see. Hey, I mean, Urban, if you're listening...
I don't think he would ever coach
he's not
Michigan
going.
team.
Austin, let me salivate about this fantasy for a second, okay? I know what's not going to happen. Urban's not coming back coaching unless it's USC, and that's not happening. Urban's not coming back. But, man, can you imagine Urban Meyer going up against his Buckeyes, getting to dominate Michigan again?
I'm sure it's a nice thought, but
it's not going to happen. So let me get over that for a second. Just had a mind direction for a second. So, I wanted to bring up something nationally that's going on in college football over the last few years, recruiting and on the field. Essentially, I want to call them the Power Six, Austin, and I'm sure if I'm referring to the Power Six teams, I'm just going to have you guess on the 6 teams I'm talking about. I'm sure you can name them right now.
Alabama,
yep.
Clemson, Ohio
yep.
State,
yep.
Georgia,
yep.
LSU,
yep.
and I don't know if the last one would be a Pac-12 team or if it would be an SEC team like Florida.
Oklahoma. I would throw Oklahoma in there.
Oh my gosh, I am stupid. Yep. I should have known that. Okay. Yeah, okay. Got it.
And my question is, obviously this won't last forever. Nothing does in sports, but you look at recruiting rankings and you look at the teams that are always in the playoff and that are in it at the end. It seems like those 6 teams as of right now are just light years ahead of every other program in the country. Just watching the LSU Clemson national title game, I mean, wow. I mean, in Alabama, I mean, they lost Tua, so I mean, they had what's his face at quarterback. I mean, you had keep Tua in all year. I mean, who knows what they do?
That's true.
Those 6 teams are just dominating the recruiting trail. You don't see a lot of 5 stars going outside of those teams now. I mean, every now and then a team like Florida Michigan, Texas A&M starting to come up there. They'll go outside the box, but I think it's safe to say 80-85% of the 5 stars are those 6 schools. And I guess my question to you is, do you think these 6 teams dominating the sport of college football is good for the sport or bad for the sport? Because it's great product when these teams play each other, but as of right now, and I would say for at least the next few, it's those 6 and everybody else. Even if a team gets to a playoff outside of those teams, like a Michigan State team did, it seems like those outsiders just get demolished like Michigan State did when they go up against them.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. And the recruiting world is its own thing. Kids like to win. Kids like to go to the big name schools and go together and win, and gives them the best chance to pursue a dream. And I would say those schools have definitely put a lot of talent into the league, especially recently. So, I don't know. Will other teams get up there? I think potentially, but they're blue bloods within themselves. Florida State used to be up there, and they've just fallen off the wagon. Oregon is another team that I think is getting closer. I mean, they took the 2 top linebacker prospects in the entire country. Yep. They got both of them. So, and then they got the best pass rusher last year that absolutely dominated this year while, in his true freshman year at Oregon. So I think there are some blue blood contenders that could wiggle their way up there. But I just, like Clemson and Alabama are just consistent. It's yet to be seen on LSU. LSU has had talent before, but
they lost Brady and Burrow. So it'll be interesting to see because De'Aaron King went to Miami. So they're not getting a guy like him. It's going to be I'm forgetting his name. He was a highly touted recruit who's going to take over for. So it's going to be interesting to see how man.
I mean, I think LSU's in a good spot because Ed Orgeron is the right coach for them.
I agree.
Just like Saban is and Dabo is at Clemson. So, I think LSU will start cementing their spot because it had always been LSU would contend and then Alabama would just beat the brakes off of them, and that would be that. But now, obviously, maybe the landscape looks a little different. But I think, if USC ever figures itself out, they could get back in there. They have so much history at that program. They used to take all the top talent in California. Now they can't. So I think they could potentially, if they could get the right person like an Urban Meyer, I think they could get back in that. Obviously, Oregon, we're talking about, they're doing the right things. Maybe they've kind of figured out their coaching situation since Chip Kelly left. And then it's just, an interesting to see what does a coach like Mac Brown do at North Carolina, Les Miles at Kansas. I think, I don't know. It's just tough. Obviously, those big programs are untouchable at the moment, but I think right coaching and all it takes is a win or that sparkle, and you can shift a couple guys and the recruiting landscape will change. I mean, just look at Clemson. Clemson would never be in this conversation, but now they are, and something just changed and things fell in their favor. And then you look at Florida State, where they should definitely be in this conversation. And of course they're not, because their coaching situation is so terrible. So I definitely think we'll have some movement. I think as long as Ed Orgeron, Dabo Swinney, and Nick Saban are at their programs, I don't know how much movement we'll get out of, from those two. And clearly they've been the best teams. Anyway, I think Ohio State is another one that is, I think they're streaky in a sense that they have good teams, but I just think they play in a little bit weaker of a conference. It's, insulting the Big Ten a little bit, but Penn State, Michigan, they've never been like true dominant programs. And and Ohio State's kind of been able to get by. It makes me think of the Ohio State team that scraped by until they met their end against Purdue. So, again, I think there's wiggle and there's movement, but as far as a large landscape change, I don't think anything's imminent right now. It's going to take some time, like what Clemson was able to do whenever they kind of made it all happen.
Because I look at a program like a Michigan who always recruits well, especially in the region, and always gets a guy, a big-time guy somewhere else. But I don't think they're you see it when they play Ohio State. I don't think they're close to and they're a pretty highly touted football program. I look at a Texas A&M, Jimbo Fisher is getting all these recruits and et cetera, et cetera. You look at an Auburn. They compete with these teams at times, but I just feel like when you watch these teams play each other, especially, it is a different league, man. They are so talented. And it's fun to watch, but it's almost disheartening or misleading as a fan of a Michigan State or a Purdue or a Michigan when, let's say, Purdue, like I predicted, would win the Big Ten or go to the Big Ten title, but let's say they win the Big Ten. They go to the playoff. They're not winning. No offense. But they deserve to be there because they won the Big Ten. But, it's just, I feel like there can be teams that sneak in there, but I just think it's going to be a decent amount of time before a program outside of those teams can compete in the playoff with them. Because I think Florida State, there's been so much damage done to that program, it's going to take a little bit for them to bounce back. Same with Miami. Texas, I hear Texas is back every year since Vince Young. So I just pump the brakes on those guys. USC, we'll see. Oregon, I think, is that team that can sneak in there. So we'll see how they do. But yeah, man, it's an interesting topic I've heard talked about a lot, and I wanted to talk about it with you because I think they are essentially the Power Six, and how far back is the next team? How big is the gap? I guess is what I want to figure it out. I think it's pretty big.
Yeah, it definitely is, and it's just on top of that. I mean, when you watch, like you said, when you watch the teams, there's a massive difference in talent. It's certainly not close by any means. So, it's you just never know. I mean, I think, like you said, Oregon, I agree, is the closest, but just the talent difference. Oklahoma's a very good team, but they've never been well-rounded on defense, and their offense has been streaky. You saw it all year, and they went against LSU, and LSU destroyed them. So there's just this massive gap in the talent that these teams are pulling in. But I will agree with what Urban Meyer had said in that it's not all recruiting. It is the coaching and the developing. And the biggest, he was talking about Ohio State versus Texas. Texas rakes in a top 15 recruiting class every year, but only sends about one or two guys to the league versus, Ohio State equivalent recruiting class. They're sending, like 5 guys into the top 3
100%.
rounds. So I think it's not only the recruiting, but also the development of talent and being able to show that pedigree of developing talent. And I think that it's been imminent, or not imminent, but apparent. For example, Purdue trying to recruit offensive linemen, they were in on some guys, but teams like Oregon scooped out of the Midwest, and they've got a nice little history of having some top offensive linemen come out of the program and being able to develop them. And you look at Purdue, and they don't have that pedigree. So, that explains why they're recruiting such high talent wide receivers, because they're producing on the field, So I think just that is a big piece that I think it gets overlooked. It's not just the flash and the winning, but the development that you're able to get out of these teams too plays a big part as well.
I agree. Before we end this, Austin, just to Purdue's probably going to drop 60 first half.
Look, as optimistic as I want to be about Purdue, we got to check back in the second half. I mean, 50-26. I know 4 minutes left in the first half. I know, but
I'm just saying this feels like the Michigan State game.
Hey man, I mean, it's tough. I don't know what to make of it.
You guys are so good at Mackey, it's insane. And then you guys just, Yeah,
we're not great away. We're just not great in general. But it is what it is.
Other than that, any final words you got to say? Michigan State coaching staff, Michigan State basketball, any Purdue things you want to bring up, or just anything? Feel free. If not, you can take us out of here.
No, just Michigan State basketball. I've said it for the past, 2 years now. Yeah. Don't panic. They are who we always think they are, and they show up when it matters.
You said it last year when I wanted to hit the panic button when they lost 3 games in a row in like a similar fashion time of year. And you told me to calm down and relax, and they made a Final Four run and beat that Duke team that had a guy named Zion Williamson and another guy named RJ Barrett. So, I think they have Cassius Winston, right? So you have a guy like that, and you can make a run in the March. So, but yeah, definitely going to have to win on Saturday. But it's good to be back. I'm excited to record weekly again, most likely, maybe bi-weekly, pending on news in the coaching world for us and how spicy basketball keeps us going. But we're definitely going to be getting content out there, and we apologize for the absence.
Yeah, just got to go with the flow of the content, and when there's not a lot going on, it's tough.
Yep, it's tough. It's tough. We'll, also, make sure you subscribe to Dweeb Dive.
Yeah, if you have any nerdy essence in your body whatsoever, it's another podcast that I started with our producer, Connor. It's on things nerdy, like The Mandalorian, Star Wars, and we're doing The Witcher right now. So
it's a great show.
Self-ad. But yeah, check us out at Dweeb Dive.
Yeah, we're trying to build our own little podcasting world over here, so support us. Help us. They do a great job in the area, so check them out.
Thank you.
You guys are just pretty cool. So I mean, you guys deserve.
Well, I certainly appreciate that as well. A lot of big compliments. So take them as you will.
That's what I'm here for. I'm just gonna feed them to you, spoonfuls.
No, I will not be upset about that whatsoever.
As always, we are just rambling at the end of the show, so we will. We'll catch you guys next time.
As always, I'm Austin, co-host John Emmons. It's good to be back. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you guys next time.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. If you like what you heard tonight, subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Voice of the Fan, and also give us a listen on SoundCloud. And if you could, like our page on Facebook at Voice of the Fan, and follow us on Twitter at Voice of the Fan PC. Thanks, everyone.